I've noticed an uptick in the number of people that are wanting to make a name for themselves in the hunting industry. Once you finally get the brand of your choice to create a custom model and this fancy packaging with your name on it, you know you're there. This is the Jerrod special edition of the Option 8 sight, also known as the Judy. And I ordered a shorter quibblizer here for myself. And so they were kind enough to note that this is for those who are used to a shorter rod.
Ooh, right in the center. That is money right there. We could have shot a chipmunk in the eye at 50 yards that time. Turn him into a Joner chipmunk. That's not my prettiest 50-yard group ever. Don't be showing that, Brady, come on. How am I supposed to have a reputation if you're just gonna like reveal all my dirty secrets and show off my big bad groups? It's terrible. I gotta get a new cameraman, that's what I think. New cameraman. Well, we gave the bow a night off and brought it back out this morning just to kind of get it shot back in, adjusted the peep a little bit and got the final little, the little adjustments that make a bow feel really good in your hands done, so that I could give it a fair shake this morning. And honestly, I've been shooting the Halon X for the last 3 years, and I like a longer axle to axle bow and a longer riser bow just because it feels more stable in my hands. But there's a lot of buzz around axle to axle that I think is unjust, because what we're seeing more and more are cams that come out way high of the actual axle. And back in the day, axle to axle was a more important consideration. Now I would just say the string angle as a whole is the more important consideration. Basically, where at full draw, where does the string rotate off the cam? What's that measurement is way more important, because that's really what it was about back when axle to axle was a big buzzword. And with these big cams and the way these roll over to full draw, the string angle feels really good for a shorter axle to axle bow. I can't believe how well this bow balances and shoots. We're gonna shoot some steep downhill stuff and test out the third axis a little bit on it. But overall, this thing is dead quiet, super smooth. The draw cycle of this thing is really, really comfortable and silky smooth. So I'm in love with this little guy and can't wait to run it out in Kansas this year in a ground blind looking for a whitetail. But we're gonna go ahead and give it a few more shots and wrap it up. But I give a high 2 thumbs up for the Mathews Vertix for sure. I can't wait to put this thing through its paces and really get it dialed in. Here we go. Boy, that thing shoots so good. I love it. If you haven't, get to your local pro shop, shoot this thing. You owe it to yourself to give it a shot.
We're going to set up a new Mathews Vertix bow today. We're bright and early here before the pro shop opens, so I'm going to go ahead and throw all the accessories on. Fortunately, I've lived in small towns long enough that I've had to do most of my own bow work over the years, but I do not have a bow press here, so we will go to the local archery shop once it opens and have them help us throw a peep sight in and get that anchored, along with, I don't have any loop material with me here today, but we're going to go ahead and put a new quibblizer, again, the shorter rod model, on, because I want to be able to hunt with this thing out of a ground blind, and I think it'll be perfect dimensions for that. We're going to put a new option sight on, and we're going to throw on a Trophy Taker Smackdown Pro arrow rest. In this particular case, I've gone with the direct mount bar for this bow. Again, I'm trying to keep everything compact. I want to be able to hunt with a tree stand and a ground blind super comfortably, and I'm going to mount it to the highest location because I'm pretty confident I'm going to need that much adjustment. Makes it nice when bow manufacturers do stuff like this, nice little gestures. Okay, now one of the things about the option archery quibblizer that I love is it has so much customization to it. Almost too much if you're not familiar with it the first time out of the gate. So I'm going to leave everything a little bit loose right now. There's ways that we can pivot this bracket. There's ways that we can slide the quibblizer up and down inside the frame of the bow. This bracket can pivot, and then also it can pivot this way. So we're going to leave everything just loose enough that when I finally get it tightened up, it's going to be just right where I want my arrows in the what I call the transport mode, as opposed to the shot mode when they'll be out front like you'll see later. All All right, the next part we're going to want to install is the socket that actually receives the quibblizer when you move it into hunt mode. And it actually stays permanently attached in the stabilizer hole of your bow. Once I get everything dialed in, I'll usually throw a little bit of medium Loctite on that particular bolt just to make sure nothing can move at all. But now that I have that on there, I can easily move the quibblizer from there to there in just a few seconds. So the next step we're going to do is throw the arrow rest on this thing. Okay, we're going to put the Smackdown Pro on next. It's a limb-driven rest. I happen to prefer a limb-driven rest over a cable-driven fall away for a lot of different reasons. The main reason for me, though, is if I get a failure in the field for some reason, I can always reset. There's no timing associated with a limb-driven rest. The launcher has to be fully down and the cord tight, and you're timed. So I really like the simplicity of it, and I don't find a more simple rest design than this one. Okay, the next step is to attach the follow-away cord to the limb, and all the follow-away rests, whether they're cable activated or limb driven, usually include some kind of attachment hardware. In the case of the Mathews bows, one of the reasons I love them is because of the little built-in limb protectors at the end where the axle goes through the end of the limb. You can actually tie right between that little U shape and not use any of this extra hardware. You can tie a really tight slip knot on there, and it won't go anywhere on you. Again, super easy to service in the field too. So I'm going to do that step next. So after I've gone around the limb twice, I tie a couple of half hitches in a slip knot fashion so that once I get this thing tightened down, it'll just get tighter with time. But in order to do that, I like to melt a nice big flat button on the end of the attachment rope so it can't pull back through. Okay. Then, like I said, the beauty of a limb-driven rest is in order to adjust it or time it, we're just going to loosen up this pivot lever bolt and just pull it tight. Snug that back down. We have an arrow rest installed, ready for action. Now I'm going to go ahead and throw the molded arrow guide on it. It's a little piece that guides your arrow before you draw back. We're going to fleece it really quick, which it is included in the arrow rest. Throw it on here, and then we're going to go to the pro shop as soon as they open and get a peep sight and a loop thrown on this thing. But we are almost ready to shoot. I'm just fleecing up this arrow guide. Maybe. When in doubt, cheat.
I'm sure it's a good thing we can cut this video.
If there's any cameramen out there looking for a job, give me a call.
This guy. It's a Saturday morning.
Fair enough. All right, so normally I would advise that you wait to install the arrow guide until your bow is fully tuned, and that way you can line it up just perfectly with the arrow shaft so that the launcher will pick it right up out of there. But I've shot enough and tuned enough of these Mathews bows. I know right where this thing is going to finish out for the most part, so I'm going to go ahead and stick that on right out of the gate. Basically, I'm going to attach it to the very outside edge of the machined part of the riser, where the rubber grip actually meets the edge is where this bow will tune just fine. And even if it tunes a little outside of that, I can't really move it any further outside anyway because of that rubber grip. So it's ready to go. We are going to get a peep sight in it and a loop tied on, and we can go shoot some arrows out of this thing. I'm super excited to give this Vertix a run. I've heard nothing but super positive feedback from tons of friends that own pro shops and guys that shoot a lot better than I do that say they love this thing. So I'm super excited. Okay, so we got the first half of the D-loop on, and we're ready to tie in the second half. So in order to reduce torque in the D-loop, it's important to have the knots on opposite side, the melted ends on opposite sides. And when I first ran through the string there, I had them come out on the same side. So I switched that out real quick. It just reduces torque on the release head where it clips to the string and makes it shoot a little better. All right, we're all set up except for a peep sight, which again, we'll run to a local pro shop and have them put that in for us. In the meantime, though, it'll let me get a few arrows cycled out of this thing. We have the quibblizer positioned where I like it. The arrows are nice and parallel with the bow. They're not sticking out anywhere. It sits in nice and tight. In hunt mode, it looks really, really good. The hood is perfectly aligned with the riser of the bow, straight up and down. And then I've got my option sight set up and dialed. I love this sight because it allows you to combine the best of both worlds. I've got a single pin mover that I can run up and down with, but also if I don't have enough time, I can leave it closed with all those fixed pins at fixed yardages. And I love the fact that this combines the best of both worlds. So we're going to go out and get a sight tape put on this thing so that we can use that movable single pin to adjust to exact yardages, particularly true for longer shots. And see how this thing feels on my hand. I can tell already it's going to be a sweet shooting bow though. So